Hello and welcome to our unit on inventors. My name is Miss Pucci and today we're going to be talking about the inventors of the nuts and bolts. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Basically it just means the basics, the foundation. So we're going to be talking about the inventions that have stood the test of time, and let's be real, the things that if we didn't have them, we'd be in a totally different place. You'll see what I mean when we talk. Go ahead and take a look at our background for today and consider what might we be talking about. That might give you a little bit of a clue. First, let's start out with our lesson objectives. Today, you're going to be able to identify some key inventors and connect them to the inventions that they made. Pretty simple. But the drawback I want you to take away is not necessarily details about their lives or the things they made, but just how the inventions impacted daily life and history as a whole. That's going to be pretty key here. So, let's meet the inventors we're going to be discussing today. First, we're going to start way back in ancient history in the 200s BC with Archimedes. Then we're going to jump forward to the 19th century with Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Let's start off with Archimedes. Archimedes was born in 287 BCE in Italy, but he was a Greek. He was a mathematician and he died in 212 BC. That's kind of weird. He was born in 287 but died in 212. Why did the number get smaller? Here's why. Think about it this way. The years kind of fall on a number line, but before year 1 in that BC era, we're kind of in the negative part of a number line. So imagine this is like negative is like 300 BC, and then we come up here to 0 or year 1, and then here are all the positive years. 2020 is going to be over here. So that's why the numbers get smaller, because think about it, you're at negative 287 going down to negative 212. That's not how we say the years, but if you want to compare it to a negative number line, that will help you a little bit, I think. Here's a fun fact for you. Archimedes discovered so many things. One of them was that he wanted to discover the proportion of silver and gold because of a task from a king. He ended up discovering this solution while he was in the bathtub, and he was so excited that he jumped out of his bathtub and ran through the streets screaming, "Eureka," which means "I have found it." Interesting, right? So now that image of the crazy scientist shouting "Eureka" we know now comes from Archimedes. Cool, huh? So let's talk about some of those things he did. Now, notice here, the only things I want you to memorize are in yellow. So here, you don't need to memorize all of these discoveries. I just want you to know that Archimedes and many of his other ancient inventor friends were really foundational for all of time. Here's why. Notice here that they didn't necessarily make objects or things like the telephone. They discovered the laws that go behind nature in science. The things that helped other scientists make their discoveries later on. The things that we take for granted and don't really recognize now. For example, take a look at the picture of the pulley here, right here, in the middle of your screen. It's a circle with a little groove in it, and then there's a string that goes through it. There's a bucket on one side and your hand on the other. If you pull the string on this side, then the bucket will go up, right? That's something that we just kind of know happens. But why does it happen? What's the math behind it? Archimedes was able to find that out. He did that with the lever, the measurements of a circle, and laws of buoyancy, the floating and sinking. He also did that with the volume of a sphere, which is a three-dimensional circle. So he did a lot of this foundational stuff. The one thing I want you to remember, though, is that he invented the Archimedes screw. And I pulled this one because it's not a screw that you drill into wood, like you might think it would be. In fact, it's a huge screw that was used to transport water uphill. So notice that there's this big tube, and it has a big screw or that corkscrew on the inside. You have a crank at the top, you crank it, and it makes the corkscrew spin, so it pulls the water uphill. If you can see in that picture there, it gives a pretty good demonstration. That solved a huge problem because now the ancients were able to get more access to water, whether it be for traveling, drinking, baths, whatever you may use water for, any of those uses. So that was a huge deal because imagine this, the more water you have, especially the more access to clean water, the longer you can live, which that just gives you much more access to inventions overall. So Archimedes was huge in the ancient world. Now let's move on to Thomas Edison. Edison was born in 1847 and he died in 1931, which means that some of your grandparents or your great-grandparents might have been alive at the same time as him. Pretty crazy, right? He was alive pretty recently in history. He was also born in Ohio, which is in the northeastern part of the United States. His career was as an inventor, but he did not get his start that way. As a young child, he was not good in school, and he had to get pulled out, and his mother had to homeschool him because he misbehaved so much and was so bad at it. He actually, because of smallpox and in exposures to loud trains, he was nearly deaf by the time he was an adult. But that did not stop him because, fun fact, he held a world record for the most number of patents at the time. A patent is a document that basically claims your rights to an invention, and he had 1,093 of them. We're definitely not going to talk all about all of them today, but let's talk about some of the most impactful inventions that he had. The first was the incandescent light bulb. We're going to pause on that and talk about it later because there was a lot of controversy surrounding that founding. He did invent the phonograph, however, and I want you to memorize that. That is a device that allowed us to record voices for the first time. He also did a lot of work on transmitters for speakers and microphones and the motion picture apparatus or the video camera. Very interesting, right? So let's take a look at that phonograph here. Here's just a quick video showing how one works. This is not the first phonograph, but this one was designed by Edison within 10 or 15 years or so of the first one.
Hi, I'm about to make a recording on wax. I'm cutting a record using an Edison standard phonograph from the collection of Henry Ford, circa 1903, the earliest technology to playback recordings you could actually record at home. So I'm going to demonstrate now. Hello, hello, hello. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, its lamb was sure to go. So now I can lift the cylinder up, remove it, and brush off the swarf because I cut through the wax. Switch out my cutting stylus for a playback stylus. Put it back on the machine, reposition, horn back. Let's see what we can hear.
Hello, hello, hello. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that...
So notice, of course, the sound quality was not nearly as good as our iPhones today, but this paved the way for the future big time. And I don't know if you noticed, the canisters that were on the side that held the wax, they only held 2 minutes of sound. That was it. Imagine doing that much work for just a couple minutes of sound. This definitely paved the way for the telephone and other huge inventions of the time, though. So this was a big one for Thomas Edison. Now let's move on to Nikola Tesla. He was born in 1856 and died in 1943, again living very recently. In fact, he was alive at the same time as Edison, and they butt heads very often. They were often after the same inventions. He was born in what was then known as the Austrian Empire. You can see this is a map of Europe, so the United States would be over here to the west of this whole map. Austria-Hungary was in the middle here, this big green area. He was in what was now known as Croatia. This map looks totally different now because of the wars that we've had since then, but just for the sake of understanding, that's where he was. He went to the University of Prague for engineering, and he was an inventor. Fun fact, he was such an impactful inventor, and he was so smart and had so much research done that some of his inventions are still classified by the US government, meaning that the public does not have access to all of Tesla's inventions. That's pretty crazy, right? So now let's jump in. What made him so impactful? First, he invented the Tesla coil. We're going to watch a video on that one. It basically gave us access to some wireless electricity, and it was used in radio and TV sets. We don't use the Tesla coil anymore. We have a lot more efficient ways, but this was huge and paved the way for what we use now. He also adapted the alternating current, meaning that he did not invent it, but he improved it big time. Here's why. As you can see in my background, I have a picture of direct current, which just shows you that the energy is flowing in one direction, symbolized by these arrows. Alternating current suggests that energy can move in multiple directions. It's much more efficient, and it wastes a lot less energy. However, Tesla adapted even that model and made it waste a lot less energy. He invented a lot of technology that helped to do that, so he gets a lot of the credit for the alternating current just because the original invention was scrapped as soon as Tesla improved on it. He also invented terrestrial stationary waves, which basically proved that the Earth generates some electricity. In this picture down here, you can see he basically invented man-made lightning. That is crazy. So now let's take a look at the Tesla coil.
Tesla developed a device in 1891 which could produce bolts of high-voltage electricity, known as the Tesla coil. The device has a primary coil which passes a current onto a secondary coil, creating a high voltage and low current, which shoots out a lightning-like discharge. Tesla put on demonstrations showing how the Tesla coil could be used to power light bulbs wirelessly nearby. He also held the light bulbs up close to the Tesla coil, powering them without harm to himself.
Okay, so this was a big deal, especially the part where he was holding up the light bulbs and getting the wireless energy from them. Here's why. At the time, people still thought electricity was very dangerous and that it could be very harmful to you and it could hurt you. But he was able to prove using his Tesla coil that he could power one light bulb and it would transmit energy to the other one with the Tesla coil wirelessly without hurting him at all, and he was directly holding both of them. So they were both powered without doing any harm to him. That was a huge deal for the time. So now let's talk some controversy. Remember I mentioned that the light bulb may or may not have been Thomas Edison's invention. So was it his or did he steal it from someone? Here's the tea, or the gossip. Thomas Edison was known for stealing inventions from people. Hold on though, that's a big accusation. So let's do some research. Here's the idea for yes. Other people, including Tesla, but most notably Joseph Swan, had their hand in the invention of the light bulb. Edison stole Swan's model, made it better, and then sold it as his own. Wow, that sounds pretty bad, right? Well, let's hear the flip side. Lots of patents and inventions and improvements were just already improvements on existing products, kind of like how Tesla improved the alternating current. The inventions often became a race to see who could get the most effective product out in the fastest way. So dozens of people were after the light bulb, but Edison just got there first. It leaves me pretty split, huh? Well, here's the real answer. It's kind of a mix of the two. Swan had done a ton of work on the light bulb, and so Edison used Swan's work to improve on it and then sold it as its own, kind of like how Tesla improved on the alternating current. However, the person who had previously invented the alternating current already had it out there. Swan didn't really have it out there, so Edison kind of stole it out from under him. So the patent company ended up giving credit to both Edison and Swan. They had a joint company together, but eventually Swan sold his part of the company to Edison, and Edison got to take it as his own. So it's a little bit of both. So make sure you do your research before you ever claim that anyone did anything, because there's lots to uncover there, huh? So, let's review. Remember, I said all you needed to know what was highlighted in yellow. So Archimedes invented the Archimedes screw, Edison invented the phonograph and the light bulb, and Tesla invented the Tesla coil and the AV current. You're going to be quizzed on this on your Google Forms, so make sure you commit those to memory, but you'll have access to this video the whole time, don't worry. Here are my sources. Don't forget to document your sources. These are the links to everything I used today in my video. But that is all for now. So what do you do now? I want you to go to the Google form that is for the inventors of the nuts and bolts. You're going to take a short quiz. It is very easy. You'll know everything in there if you watch this video, but you'll have access to this even if you don't. If you need any technology help, ask your teacher or ask me. You can find me on Twitter at juliapucci.edu or on my website at www.juliapucci.edu.weebly.com. You can also ask your friends, but make sure that you're not asking for help on the quiz just for some technology help. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks for listening. Bye.